to my studio. Today I'm going to tell you about my abstract paintings. They are probably my favorite work to make, and I know people can be very, dismissive of work that is, where I care about it being pleasing to me and my, work that I find beautiful and one has to be very serious and serious work can't be beautiful and pretty and it's not that this is all the work I make. I get so much joy and energy and a real sense of abundance as I make this work, especially. I find it very life-giving. I find it a celebration of life, and so I'm willing to brave the cynical, and I guess, my attempt to bring you a little bit closer to it, to explain some of my thoughts behind it. A lot of these paintings look like they've sort of happened all at once, and to some extent that is part of the way that I paint. I like to sort of make a printing so I place the paint either on the canvas or paper. I tend to prefer to work on paper just because I can, or board really, because I need that hard surface to move the paint around on. And I use everything from like palettes to my hands to balloons to get that curve. And I guess you get a real sense of movement because I'm working quite quickly, and sort of dance, I guess. There's a lot of rhythm, there's a lot of light play. I'm figuring it out almost like it's a problem, by which I mean, I'm trying to make it a balanced image. I'm trying to make it so that as you read the painting, you're engaged in it. It's not just like a passive work, that you're part of that narrative, you're part of the story, you bring your imagination, your heart, your intellect to it. And I also want to make it so you don't feel like you have to, understand it, or you have to have some sort of, PhD in art history to enjoy it and to be part of it and to get something away from it. I hope that they're paintings that leave a sense of lightness, a sense of connectedness, a sense that you are we're part of each other, and most of the time when I started these, they were really an exploration of, what I was feeling and couldn't articulate in words, and I couldn't really map out what it was that I was feeling, and from not wanting to be overwhelmed by those, not necessarily bad feelings, but a sense of energy that I couldn't necessarily contain. I wanted to get it out. And I found over time that sometimes I would come back to a painting and it would mean something different to me, or I would see something different in it, or I'd spot a pattern that I hadn't noticed before. And initially I was a bit like, oh gosh, I don't know if that makes me a proper artist, and shouldn't I know what it is that I'm trying to make before I make it? And all these questions came up, and really I decided I didn't care. And that most of the time when I did try and have like, this is what I'm going to make in mind, I lost out on that element of surprise and joy that comes from yeah, when I've made something and it surprises me and it you know, I find joy in it, and that to me seemed valuable, even if nobody else saw that value. Um, and I, you know, over time it began to be a little bit about really mapping an inner landscape. And I remember talking to someone in the art world, and they were saying, you know, oh, you want to be careful about how you talk about that as a woman, as a black woman. You know, when you talk about inner landscapes, emotions, people will either try to pathologize that, and this is in no way, you know, saying that there's anything wrong with being mentally ill. Like, that's like any illness, get treatment, and there's no stigma, there's no shame in it. But that's not what I was saying with my work, and I, you know, and so I understood that warning, but at the same time I was a bit like frustrated by it, because just because somebody's talking about what is going on in their mind and in their emotions, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily from trying to treat something. Although making my work has often been quite cathartic in itself, so I guess there's that tension there. And the flip side as well was that they'd also try and sort of infantilize it, and or call it like primitive, or, you know, yes, there's something completely organic in my response to color, and my response to how I make work. I'm not writing a philosophical thesis as I make this work. It has a different purpose, but that purpose is no less, no more than. It's still an intellectual exercise. It's still an element of problem solving. There's choices being made. There's decisions. It's either this or not. It's, you know, it's either that or, you know, true or false. Kind of. There's all these micro choices that end up with a finished image, which is complex and chaotic and ordered, and a mix of paradoxes. And for me, that's where the interest in it comes, and that's what makes it a joy and a privilege to be able to make it. You know, it comes through me, and you know, whilst I'm proud of my work, it's also work that I can't hold on to and cling to. It once people see it, their response is their response to it, right? And I guess the other part of these paintings is the sort of texture, the language of paint, I guess, for want of another way of explaining it is it finally feels like something that's very personal to me, very individual to me, the way that I make paintings, the way that I can say, okay, this work is done, and I tend to paint, you know, keeping the surface wet the whole time and dancing around the canvas, especially the bigger pieces. It's rather more challenging. I started working on pieces really more like this sort of size, where, you know, I knew I could cope with this size. It's a very human size, and you know, I could work quickly around and solve those problems quickly. But it's very different when, you know, you have some things with this scale, and I'm hoping to work even bigger, and also different shapes too. You know, this has been something that I got almost by accident. You know, it just sort of called out to me, and I thought, oh, why not? I've not made that shape before, and I really enjoyed it. I really yeah. Um, it made me think about space differently. It made me think about taking up space differently. Um, and I started, being more curious about, shapes and how do we respond as human beings to certain types of shape. Um, and oftentimes with these paintings, what they've told me about myself, I guess, and sort of the ideas that I've been thinking about in the last few years, that reading work that's really resonated. There's an encyclical paper called Laudato Si, which talks about, in which Pope Francis talked about integral ecology and this idea that we're all connected to each other and to the planet and to our environment, and this idea that you can't sort of isolate each person and sort of ask them to do whatever, as an individual they necessarily feel, without that having an impact on others, and the way in which we all live at the expense of each other. And thinking about how, if the planet is part of us and we're part of the planet, and so making these paintings which look a little bit like a botanical, garden, sort of wild petals or feathers, or the fins of a fish, or they're very alive and vibrant and hopeful, and that's very important to me. I think I initially thought, oh well, abstract work, I can't sort of communicate this idea explicitly, and I used to be very frustrated by that, and I always felt like, oh, maybe I need to do something else with them, I need to write on them, I need to write in them, I need to change them somehow, and in a way I'm very glad this is part of why I feel called to make work, is I can't help but make these. I'm sometimes very frustrated with myself because I want to make very minimalist aesthetic, and my work is not that. That's not how it comes out. I can't. I'll try and make this very clean lines, and it's not natural to me, and I admire that kind of work enormously, and I'm sure if I ever get to collect work, that's the kind of stuff I'd have in my home. And it's only recently that I've started having a couple of my pieces in my own room and living with them, and seeing how that changes my experience, and thinking about how some of my work is about resilience, and thinking about how there's a sense of timelessness, there's a sense of both ancient gardens, and future life, and it all feels very very much within these paintings. So it makes sense to me that they're work that I want to take around the world as a talisman, and have with me on my person. And I know people talk about, serious work, you can't have it on a keyring or whatever, and I've been thinking a lot about, I make the work to imbue it with the sort of joy and life force, I guess, and I want that around. If I'm in a cafe and it's on the back of my phone, that for me is, I'm very okay with that, and I'm very. We all have different physical things that we take around with us that have special meaning. And you know, these paintings reveal themselves to me, as I say, some of them very much in the moment, but others over time. And I want people to have that. Not all art can be viewed in a serious, quiet, contemplative space. Some of my work is made for that context. But I feel so strongly that work has to be accessible to people, that work has to be at service, and it's not just for me, it's not just for a few rich people to store away for future value, it's not just for a privileged few to enjoy. That's not why I make work. And I make that choice very consciously, you know, and I make that choice knowing that there might be, given the markets as they are at the moment, a real decision there. But I also want my work to not just tell a story in and of themselves and their content, but also in how they are out in the world, and for them to spark connection, conversation, a coming together of people. So, all right, let's finish with this piece called Midnight Irises, which I really enjoyed. I made recently. I say recently, I've really lost all track of time. In the last year, at least. and yeah, I feel like I'm maturing in this practice. Thankful for the space to have made work like this. The opportunity to feel that what I make is important, even if that's only ever just going to be to me. And it gives such a sense of meaning to life, and I'm very aware that in itself is life-giving. So I hope that gives you an insight into some of my paintings, and yeah, let me know what you think, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you.